Hello, everyone. I'm a minute early. Hopefully, you can hear me and see me with no problem. Just adjusting here. There we go. Awesome sauce. Look a little rough today. It's been a day. It's Thursday. Well, let's just put it that way. Waiting for you guys to hop on. I know a lot of you watch this on a replay, and I really appreciate that. So let's go ahead and kind of nail this down a little bit. Much better. Okay, cool. All right, everyone. Tonight, I know I did a little quick blurb last night, so probably a lot of you are not quite on, or will definitely see this as you get the notification that I'm on live, or you'll see the replay. Had someone bring something to my attention that I know needed attention. It was interesting to have the conversation of suicide has no age discrimination whatsoever. And it has no discrimination, period, of age, gender, whatever it is. So with that, I know that I talk a lot about my son. I know I talk a lot about teenagers, young people having to have the communication, but it also goes for anyone of any age. And I really do want to focus on adults. And I don't want to say so much of adults of 21 and older, but I would say adults probably maybe 30 and older. We have a lot of aging generations now that are in their 70s, 80s, 90s that are having difficulty enduring this age that we are in, this time frame. I can honestly say I understand more now, especially since we have this virus that's going around that has made a lot of us stay home. If you're watching this in a different state, South Carolina just, especially in the Charleston area, just initiated a mandate of close all businesses. They have not mandated stay home. They're urging people to do that, but they have closed all non-essential businesses to help people to stay home. So we need to be more aware of our older generation because they some cannot navigate through technology, such as ordering groceries online, anything having to do with that. So a lot of them are very confused and very upset, and they don't have their families helping them. So right now is a very difficult time. Where I'm going with this is the fact that we don't stop and think about our geriatric age group because of the fact that a lot of people see them as our elders, and they've always been there and they will always be there. That's not always the case. A lot of times we have people that are older are enduring things that they don't want to talk about, or they are chronically in pain, or they're chronically depressed, or they're chronically lonely is a major one. I can honestly say I know for a fact a lot of our elders have died from a broken heart. There are many factors. So let's go through them real quick. Someone who's just recently retired. Well, retirement is a big, scary thing because a lot of people, A, are not prepared for it. B, don't know how to live in a retirement money income than they did when they were just having their income. So it's a hard process of going to always have something to do, then all of a sudden have nothing to do. No hobbies, no nothing. So they find themselves in a very low spot and they don't know how to deal with it. And sometimes they commit suicide, or they succeed in suicide, I should say, is how everyone is teaching us how to say it. So they are taking their lives because they they don't deal with change very well. So anytime someone goes into retirement, always check in on them. Also, when they have a spouse that dies, that is difficult. As you well know from me having my son pass away, but I can tell you right now, if anything ever happened to my husband, that'd be difficult. That would be very difficult. So it's one of those things where I can't think of that because I'll start crying on you. We don't want to do that. I've had enough crying today. We also have to understand that a lot of them, it's a financial burden when they are older because they are on a retirement income and it is a very, very small income. So they're having to, do I pay bills? Do I get medication? Do I get food? Or do I take care of this? You know, it's always on a pendulum. If they can't afford things, they start sacrificing things, and that plays havoc on your mentality. So that is one thing. Another thing that I can honestly say that I really, really understand and can relate to is chronic pain. Anyone who has had any type of problem with like accidents, arthritis, or anything that brings on chronic pain, or even if you've been sick for a few days, like the flu, you know how your body aches for days and you're like, God, how does anybody live with this forever? I have Crohn's disease. I actually have ulcerative colitis, but I tell people I have Crohn's because most people know what Crohn's is. I actually live with pain. Now, I'll take that back a little bit. I lived with pain day in and day out ever since I was diagnosed when I was 30. Now, I can honestly say now that I'm in my 40s, knock on wood, I really haven't had any pain, so I'm very grateful for that. But I know what it's like to live with your knees not functioning, your back is always hurting, you're afraid to eat because the pain is just so it takes your breath away. That's how bad the pain can be. Now just imagine our older generation living with that type of pain, and they can't walk. Some of them are even bedridden because the pain is so bad, and it doesn't matter what the pain came from, they're just living day in and day out with pain. So it is one thing that we have to understand is no one wants to live like that. They're always in pain. So that plays also with your mentality. So in that respect, you see a lot of them like, well, nothing's worse than this, so yeah, I might as well just go. So that is really something that we have to watch at our older generation. When they are complaining a lot, or you see them having problems, we need to really get to them in an early stage so we can help them. Another thing is also when they are just diagnosed with something such as cancer or even dementia. My father-in-law, my husband's father, passed away. Grayson was 16, so 15 years ago, he passed away. And he died from dementia. I know that's something that he never wanted. He was a great man. He really was. Always had a joke. He definitely liked the ladies. He was just a really charismatic type of guy. I always picked on my husband and said he reminded me a lot of Fred Astaire because that's who he looked like, and he loved to dance with his wife, my mother-in-law, my husband's mom. I always heard stories about them dancing and stuff like that. So I know when he was diagnosed, it was rough. And I know what my mother-in-law went through, and it was rough on her. So you have to think in that respect too. Not only was he diagnosed, but she's having to deal with it as well. So you have so many different avenues there that you're thinking about. We have to watch these people and just know that we are here for them, because it's not easy watching someone that you love literally waste away. You know, when our older generations are diagnosed with things, they look at themselves in the mirror and they have to say, do I really have the strength to go through this? Do I have the want to endure this? Am I going to live through this? And sometimes they opt to take the other way out. The old saying is, I rather go out on my terms, you know, instead of going out with whatever else takes me. I've known a couple people that have talked about they've had relatives that have dementia, that they had made comments that they'd rather not live, not they rather not have their family live with them with the dementia, so they rather take care of it now, meaning suicide, and not have to worry about that. Because if I'm going to lose my mind anyway, I might as well go out on my own terms. And that is scary to think of, because now you are really contemplating on that idea of it's better on the other side. So you have to really sit and talk to those and have some very intense conversations, because you don't want to lose a loved one. And a lot of people do survive cancer and other diagnoses. Now, dementia, obviously we don't have a cure for that. Obviously that is something that is being worked on. There are some good drugs that are out there. I say drugs and I meant pharmaceutical drugs that are really being developed. So it's come a long way in 16 years. But I can tell you, it is still not a fun thing to watch. Now, also with the generations of paying bills or being at home, not being able to afford their own home, so they have to move in with families, so then they feel like a burden. So that is another thing that a lot of your older generation does not want to deal with. They can be perfectly fine health-wise, but they feel such a burden, an annoyance to their family members, that they're like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and just leave this life so they can have everything that they need, and they don't have to worry about me being in their way, being a burden, you know, whatever excuse that they have. So we have to, again, address that and have those conversations, because that is something that we don't want them to feel like. Now, granted, it can be a pain, because when you have somebody move in who is used to being independent, or if you at running your normal household, it is a change. But these are our elders, and these are who we were supposed to be taking care of. And that's just, I grew up in a Native American home. I grew up in a family where that's what we did. We just took care of each other. Now, granted, it was the best of family, but you know, it is what it is. That was instilled into me. So it's one of those things that, if my mother-in-law needed to move in with us, we'd do it in a heartbeat, you know. But she's fiercely independent, so I don't see that happening anytime soon. But these are different things that we really have to look at. Older generations that are still dealing with PTSD, and I'll use my grandfather as an example. He was in the Vietnam War, and he built bombs for a living. So he did a lot of things that he never spoke about after he came back. He suffered from severe PTSD, hence the reason why he was a severe alcoholic when he came back. Now, that is a lot of different other things that went on, but I'm just going to concentrate on the PTSD part, is that he lived with that until the day he died. PTSD is a real thing. I can honestly say I suffer from it. I was doing really good for a while from my past, but I can honestly say with Grayson's passing, I had some things surface, and I can honestly say I have a hard time when I see police officers or I hear sirens and stuff like that, because of course it reminds me of that day. So it's definitely PTSD for our military is something not to snub. A lot of our people who came back from the wars, especially the ones who are coming back now from Afghanistan and those countries over there, they are seeing some things that they're not accustomed to seeing. And when you are bombarded day in and day out by having to fight or flight syndrome that is going on, when you come back, it is such an ingrained thing, routine, that you have somebody's back, you know your job, you know what you're doing, and all of a sudden you come back and you're like, okay, what do I do now? These guys don't convert very well. So those are things like our vets that are having to deal with when they are in that realm of having to deal with the PTSD. It's like, you know what? I can't do this. I can't do this. So I'm just going to go. Our older vets are going through the same thing as well. They are having to deal with that. So if you look at all the different reasons that our older generation are having, it's kind of scary to think about that you're not having more who complete in suicide than anything, just because of where they are in their mindset. Their mortality is very forefront on their minds. Their bills, money, way of life being a burden, their family, seeing generations, what they've had in their past. I mean, it's boom, 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 constantly in their minds. So with a conversation that I had, it was about pain and being diagnosed with something. It is very rough to see a family member having to take the burden of being diagnosed with something that you may not recover from. Take a step back and look and be in their shoes and realize what would be easier on their families. That is the one thing that they're thinking of. Not something that you want them to think of. This is something that you need to have that conversation with them. Because it is not, I'm not saying condone by any means whatsoever, but I'm saying make sure you know where they are mentally. Make sure that you are having those conversations, because they are not going to tell you, hey, by the way, I'm thinking of this. Let's just have a conversation about it. They're not going to tell you that. So you are the one that has to initiate that. There are people out there. For medical, there are people out there to help you navigate through being diagnosed and all the thoughts, because it is a grief process as well. Grief goes through anything of a diagnosis, of losing a spouse, of losing someone to suicide, of losing a pet. It's a cycle. You don't go through it in the same exact way. You do not go through it like somebody else. Grief is very specific to per person, but you have to have those conversations. So with that, I was really thinking about that, and really struck me is having that conversation with a person is, we don't stop and think about our older generations doing this. We always think of, the teenagers, the depression, the bullying, or you think of the young adults, and I'm saying 18 to 25-ish, 26, who are having trouble at college, or just learning how to be an adult, can't afford things, or did something really stupid and they regret it. So we think of that age group of understanding why they commit suicide. But when we hear about an older generation, we're like, why? He lived so long. So I guess that's where I'm going with that, in the respect of, you don't think about it, but we need to think about it. Suicide has no discrimination whatsoever. It does not look at your race. It does not look at your gender. It does not look at your age. It's something that it gets into our head, that thought, and it is very difficult to get out of. And if anybody who suffered depression, you know what it's like to get in that dark spot. And you know it is very difficult to crawl out of. Today, I can honestly say it was a hard day. Yes, it's Thursday. Just woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning and just was in and out of sleep. And, he was first and foremost on my mind, just like he always is. But today was even more, and just everything went wrong today. And I just, so it was not a good day. But I can honestly say, having these conversations and talking with people and bringing awareness and understanding where we are going with this, it has been an eye-opening experience. And when she sent me that message about, our older generation, it was like, yes, I need to have that conversation. So that's why I popped so quick last night and I do need to be dutifully better. My husband pointed that out quite well, and he's correct. This is something it's a career, and I need to be more prominent on that. So thank you for making me better, honey. You guys have any questions, or is there anything that you had that you thought of that I haven't said yet? I know there's a few of you on here that are my regulars, and I appreciate that. I always love seeing you on here. But I know dealing with PTSD, especially for our military vets, I try personally. Of course, now I'm afraid to do it, walking up to somebody and shaking their hand and say, I appreciate your service. I've always made a point to that. I always look at the hats, the World War II vets. There's not a lot of them left, I can tell you that. The Korean War, the Vietnam War, and I'm doing this because I see their hats and stuff like that. I always try to make an effort, and if I see anybody in a military uniform, I'm definitely, walking by them and say, hey, thank you for your service. A lot of them get uncomfortable when I do that, but being a military brat myself, I will definitely point it out, because that's one thing I can honestly say that I wanted to be. I wanted to be an Air Force mom. So I'm going to love on the Air Force and the military, and I'm going to love all my cadets if I ever get to meet them. But it's definitely something we need to be aware of our older generations. Take that conversation now, why we have the time on our hands. FaceTime, I know the older generation have a difficult time with technology. I have a difficult time with technology. I kill technology. But we need to sit down and show them how to use their cell phones, show them how to use FaceTime, go through Facebook or whatever phone you can use. I don't know all the different apps that everybody has. But, show them so they can see your face and make them feel comfortable with the fact that they can reach you at any time. And have those hard conversations, because you're teaching them to understand they were parents before. They were our age before. They have a lot of experience. They can help us. But we can help them to understand that they're not going to be forgotten, that we are here if they have any problems. And with all this virus thing that's going around, we had a lot of people on the internet, especially on Facebook, saying please protect them and help them in the grocery stores, because they navigate through and they see how crazy people have become. And they don't have the strength to grab something that all these people are going nuts in the grocery stores for, or they're on such limited budgets that they can't afford the things that are left. So we have to be diligent and take care of them. We have to stand up and say, hey, let me take care of you. So that also goes with suicide, and we need to make sure that we are there for them even when they think that they have no one. So that's what I have for tonight. If you guys don't have any questions or anything, I really appreciate you listening to me tonight. I know it was a short one, but this is one that I felt like needed to be heard, just because I do hope I can get on the base. I really do. That's my absolute goal, is to get on the base and talk to those cadets, talk to those enlisted, because good Lord, I know they have such a difficult time. But we needed to sit down and realize that with the older generation, with everything, there is confusion just as much as we have confusion. So right now we have to reach out to them and help them navigate through something that nobody from the 20s is alive right now, pretty sure. So what's going on now kind of reminds you back of the 1920s. So it's one of those things where if they were alive and they can tell us, they're like, you'll live through this, don't worry, we got you. So make sure that you have them, make sure you take care of them. So I love you guys. Thank you for always being on there. I see all of you on there, and I really appreciate that. So give me a thumbs up Give me some hearts, some love to let me know that you guys are doing well, and we'll start talking more on a regular basis. And there's other things that I want to get out as well. So I will see you guys later. I will talk to you, and stay safe, everyone. It is a crazy world that we're in right now. Just stay safe. All right, guys. Good night.